Hey guys, and welcome to an episode, our very first episode of 1001 Movies to See Before You Die, companion series to go with the updated edition of the book that was delivered to us, brought out by Stephen J. Snyder, updated by Ian Hayden Smith. I will be kicking you off today. My name is Dan, and the owner of the channel here with me is.
Of course, my name is Matt. If you don't know that, why are you here?
But we do appreciate you tuning in today. Today is day one of a really big journey for us. Matt and I have decided to go into filmography like not probably many people have done. One, to actually try to read and go through and watch all of these movies, but then to sit and talk about all these movies. I mean, Matt, how long did you say that it would probably take us if we did one of these a day?
If we did one every single day, and I'm not just talking about even if we don't do a YouTube video, even if we just watched one movie every single day, it's going to take us 3 years, over three, about 3 years, 3 years to do this. Um,
So between work and I know you just had a big move on you, life outside of film and movies. We're probably not going to be doing one every day. So
no, no, and I'm looking at new job opportunities, and God willing, there's an opportunity that might allow me a lot of free time to do this. But even at that, it's not going to be a every day or every other day thing. It's going to be at best maybe once a week thing. So it's going to take years. This is a year long passion project. It's going to be, I think, like you said in the first episode, uh, it's going to be us the love of wanting to do this. It's going to keep this going if we can get this done.
yeah, I know we talked a little bit in the last episode, which if you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and check that one out. Just an introductory video. We didn't go over any movies yet, but just the fact that for us, Matt and I have been part of at this point three different broadcasts before this. Um, if you can call it three. I know the last one was pretty short for us both.
Yeah.
But as far as this goes, we were looking for a way that one would keep us organized and structured. But I think what's really exciting about this is it's going to challenge us both as film watchers. I know we would bounce off of you guys if you had suggestions for us. But this is something like totally new, totally to just open our eyes and really kind of really be an education for us in the way of filmography. So, but with 1001 movies you must see before you die, we're going to be talking about 1001 movies. And then Matt suggested, is it one that we should watch before we die, or could we have gone without watching it?
Yeah.
So, Matt,
Essentially agree or disagree. Like,
yeah.
do we agree that this is a must see before you die, or could we have skipped it?
So, we're going to get right into it today. And while we're kicking off the episode, this movie that we're starting off with is 122 years old at this point. Um, in English, our title is A Trip to the Moon. I could try to butcher the French title of this, and I'm going to try Le Voyage dans la Lune. Um, this was put out by George Méliès, 1902. And this film was a little bit different than what had existed beforehand. Really, this was the first 14-minute long film that was introduced. And before this, you had a lot of 2 minute, 3 minute clips that would show people doing average things, or Kayla's over here saying seconds. You might see people in a courtyard that were just moving around. You might see a video of a train going down a track. You might see somebody riding a horse. You could see workers, what? Leaving a building. It was kind of mundane things that you might see in everyday life. And this was the first time that really people started thinking outside the box. And before I get really into what this was about, I just wanted to bring up the fact that this director was a magician. Number one, that was one of his big credits before he was going into filmmaking. But on this particular film, he wasn't just a director because back then there weren't really categories for these things. He was a director, he was an actor, he was a producer, he was an editor, he was in charge of the special effects. And one thing before we jumped into this movie, I kind of want to kick it over to Matt because Matt, you do your own movies, you write your own scripts, you star in your own films. Um, as far as that goes, does that make you feel any kind of way towards this director or kindred spirit?
It's definitely cool to see that people were doing this 122 years ago. Um, that it's not just something weird that has happened over the last 30, 40 years. um you said he was, they didn't have like categories. He was a director, he was an editor, he was a what actor. uh he was a, to put it all nice in one big word with a bow on it, he was a filmmaker. And that's what I like to call myself. I like to joke that I'm a wannabe filmmaker, but he's a filmmaker. And when talking, I don't talk that often to too many people, but occasionally, someone younger than me not too long ago expressed interest in making movies and things that I have done. And I told this person, anyone can be a filmmaker. Anyone. Pick up a camera. You don't even need to you don't even need to get a camera. We all have these things now. They're like 4K on in your pocket, you know? Anyone can make a movie, and you don't have to spend a ton of money doing it unless that's the kind of movie you want to make. But, you can, I've made a handful of movies with no budget, and a lot of it's like drama, a lot of it's like just talking, um, because that's what costs less. But I'm rambling. What was the question? Oh, am I a kindred spirit? Absolutely. I think it's cool. I think it's, I don't know much about Mr. How do you say his name?
Mèliès is what we said.
Mèliès, Mèliès,
Yeah, sorry.
Mèliès. I'm not real super familiar with him. I'm not sure if he's going to turn back up in this book later or not. I don't know. But it's exciting to know that he was doing it all back before other people that nowadays are doing it all.
Taking it back a little bit, and I do apologize, I'm just getting over something. So if I stumble or start to cough, I'm so sorry.
So you got
But
a
going on over the side, one thing I did want to do, Matt and I went back and forth. Did we want to read the whole passage direct from the book about it? I don't know if that's completely necessary, but I feel for some of the silent films, especially without cue cards in them, it might be beneficial to talk about what's actually going on in the film if you do watch it. So we have the movie opening with the Scientific Congress in which Professor Barbenfollier, played by Méliès, tries to convince his colleagues to take part of a trip to explore the moon. Once his plan's accepted, the expedition is organized. The scientists embark on a spaceship. The missile-like vessel lands right in the eye of the moon, which is represented as an anthropomorphic being. Once the surface, of the scientists soon meet the hostile inhabitants, the Selenites, who take them to their king. After discovering that the enemies easily disappear in a cloud of smoke with the simple touch of an umbrella, Frenchmen manage to escape and return to Earth, fall into an ocean, explore the abyss, until they are finally rescued and honored in Paris as heroes. So, Matt, just so I'm not talking into myself, what were your takeaways from this? What were your thoughts?
my initial thoughts. Uh, First of all, I should show these are my notes that I took while watching this earlier this afternoon. um, I have a lot, but not too much. Um, my initial thoughts was that 1902. It's easy to look at it now in 2024 and be like, this is bad, or this is not what I was expecting. But you got to put it in context. This was 1902, 22 years ago. This was like one of the first movies probably ever made. Like I don't know much about like the beginning of film. I know your wife probably is
Yeah.
studying.
So the man in the chair, the lady in the chair back here, we'll call her, 14 years after the first film was released.
Okay.
And up to this point, they were just snippets. They were a few seconds into a minute. So this is the first lengthy film.
Right. So I mean, this is groundbreaking for a couple reasons. I mean, we're talking about special effects in a 1902 movie. Hello. Did you watch on YouTube or did you watch? Where'd you watch?
I did end up watching on YouTube, which for
Okay.
anybody watching this, there's about 300 movies from this that are streaming free on YouTube. So if you do want to follow along or watch some of these, that is an available resource for you.
It's also for those who have it. It's also on Max. So I've seen this movie twice now. The first time I watched the black and white version uh, on YouTube. The second time, I started to go on YouTube, and then upon using Letterboxd, my favorite movie app, cheap plug there, it said that it was streaming on Max, and I was like, oh, I've never seen like a professional, like I've only seen a YouTube cut, you know? So I wonder what the Max version looks like. And it's colorized, which it was colorized by being hand painted in every frame of every scene, which is mind blowing. Um, and they apparently that just happened like within the last 10-ish years or so.
It was discovered, I believe we said in 1993, and then it was completed and redone in 2011.
Right. So so I watched that version today with different music and different sites that I didn't see the first time around. And I gotta say, I sat with a smile on my face the entire time. Like, and not because like, oh ha ha ha, but like it was just it made me happy in a weird way that like, wow, these guys are doing it. Like for what they could do back then, they're doing it. Like they're doing more than what they could do back then. They pushed the boundaries, they broke the limits, they crossed the line into what would soon become the next thing, a film. Um, that's my initial thoughts. How about you?
Yeah, so one thing going into this that kind of boggled my mind was the use of the backdrops. Um, Even watching this in just black and white, I thought that honestly the scenes that they made were to me beautiful, and it looked more like living artwork than it did sitting and watching what a movie would be today. I thought that the thought of going to the moon in 1903, or I'm sorry, 1902, and how they were going to build a vessel to get there. I mean, their thought setting up a giant cannon, launching a bullet-shaped object at the moon. I thought that was brilliant. And then what they envisioned to be on the moon, I thought that was amazing. And I don't know, when you start to look at this, and even reading in this book, this is the earliest example that we have as a science fiction that exists in movies. This is the creation of that genre.
Really?
Um, yep, and they took inspiration. It was Jules Verne who wrote a book about going to the moon, who's the same person who did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And then
Right.
also another author, I think it was H.G. Wells, um, that they had taken some inspiration from. But just the creator here was from Paris, and I think one thing to note too is Paris is where a lot of motion pictures really started gaining a foothold, and then America would start to borrow some of those and really bring that over, and taking it, making it our own. But but yeah, I thought it was for what they had, the use of stop motion with the special effects, like you said, as far as when they were tapping the people with the umbrellas and making them explode into a cloud of dust. I thought that was very well done. And then the scene that the book talks about is one of the most iconic that it points out is when the rocket ends up in the moon's eye.
Yeah.
Um, that to me was it was still funny. It still had some value, and like you said, you look at it, it's easy to say, okay, you could do this with your kids
Yeah.
almost nowadays, but back then, I mean, this wasn't just a filmmaker. Again, this was a magician who made something magic in front of our eyes. And yeah, I'll kick it back to you if you had any more.
Yeah. I just want to. I mean, a lot of my notes are just basically the plot of the movie that I just wrote down because they intrigued me. So just a few things like, movie, it's a silent film. I think we discussed that already, but for those who may have missed it, it's a silent film. So there's just music playing in the background. There's no like talking, or well, there you see some mouths moving, but there's no dialogue, no audio heard. Um, but there, we see the scientist or the whoever he is in the beginning, which we now know is the director. Um, you know, uh, Using the chalkboard and laying out his plan to go to the moon. And they hadn't. This is before the moon landing. We hadn't been to the moon. There, no one knew what that experience was like. All of this was just going to the moon was a pipe dream. Um, I liked the costume. The costumes. Everyone was. I don't know if they were meant to be scientists or if they were meant to be like rich people because only rich people could afford to go to the moon. They were in their top hats and like button down dress coats. And They were just very fancy. And then there was like ladies. I didn't understand fully, but the ladies that were there as they were getting into the rocket, in like the skirts, they look like dancers or something almost. But and I find it funny that they're in this like bullet shaped capsule, like you said, and when they go to get in the rocket, they just get in. They're wearing their suits. There's no space suit. There's no helmet that we know you need to breathe. Um, they just all hop in and they close the door and they literally shoot almost like a gun. They shoot this ship uh, to the moon. And that's when we see it land and go into the moon's eye, and you see the moon, and it's like bleeding. It's kind of like funny and like cartoonish. Um, and then once they're there, they just get out and they start exploring, and they see the Earth from the moon, and uh, they bring blankets and they sleep on the moon. Um, it's amusing to see because, and that's why I had a smile on my face because you know I don't know in 1902, but maybe in 1902, that's what people thought they could do if they went to the moon. I don't know. I don't know what knowledge of that we had at that point. It was obviously before my time. So did we think that we could just bring blankets and have a sleepover on the moon? I don't know. Um, it snowed at one point on the moon. Um, I mean, it just then there's aliens. They find aliens, and that brings up the science fiction part that you were talking about. I guess the whole thing is kind of science fiction, but the aliens come and try to attack them. Um, they fight off the aliens. They get in their little capsule. They literally let the aliens push the capsule off the ledge of the moon, and they just fall back onto Earth. um, and they make it safe, unharmed, and they have a party and the end of the movie. And I don't know. I loved every minute of it. Like I said, I smiled the entire time. So that's pretty much all I got on this until we wrap it up.
You have to think that for the time, one, seeing a motion picture was something that probably a lot of people didn't get to do. And if they had an opportunity to, I mean, that had to be incredible to see one moving pictures, on a screen or however they projected it. And then not only just a moving picture, but something that kind of took them out of this world. Like you said, I want to give them a little more credit on what they believed the moon would have been like. I'm sure somebody knew about gravity and had some idea there. I'm not sure if they knew about the atmosphere. So as far as it being able to snow on the moon or something like that, maybe they thought it could. Um, but yeah, it is funny just how they took. I mean, at this point, there were plays. I mean, they had plays for thousands and thousands of years, but now you could capture it and put it or use it, see it as many times as you wanted to. And I mean, even the fact that one day this goes on and gets colorized and hand painted, and this is decades after the fact, and you're sitting watching it, that was lost at some point.
Yeah.
That's why I thought was interesting was the colored version or whenever it was created, it was lost, and then they just found it, and they're
In
like,
90,
okay,
what do we say, 93?
yeah, yeah, and then we're just gonna fix it, put it back together, and now you can watch it from the convenience of your TV, your
Hmm.
streaming service, your phone,
Yeah.
and just how far we've come, and just where movies like you, I mean, you can sit down, come up with a script, what it must have been like for him to just put this together and have dream. He wrote, I think it says in this book, it was over 500 films, and he starred in over 300 of them.
Oh,
And
wow.
one thing that he says is, I was a star before anybody even knew what that word meant.
Yeah.
And he was right. And I don't know, it's just an incredible piece of history. I'm glad we got to watch it, but I guess I'll kick it over to you. Is this one of the 1001 movies? Is this a movie you should see before you die?
Um, it absolutely is a movie you must see before you die. Hands down, no questions, no debate. Um, I'm glad that I watched it. I'm glad that I have rewatched it. I think if you're a film fan, I think if you're even if you're not, I think if you like movies in general, this is something that you should see. It's important for the history of film. I just real quick want to steal Martin Scorsese's quote that's in this book from 2012. Um, and again, I can't remember how we're saying this guy's name. Mèliès, is that right?
Mies.
Mèliès. I'll get it one of these days. Um, Mèliès was actually a magician, and so he understood the possibilities of the motion picture camera. That was from Scorsese. Um, just starting off strong, in my opinion. 1001 movies you must see before you die. I'm there for it. This is good. I'm absolutely must see. How about you?
I think for starting our journey, as you said, this was a strong one to kick it off. 1902, it's a year magic was put in front of our eyes, and we were taken to a place that no one had ever been before and didn't go till decades later. So, yes,
And
definitely a movie I would want to see before I died. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, and think about where we're going to go in this book with space.
Mhm.
2001: A Space Odyssey, I'm sure is in here. Apollo 13 might be in here. I don't know. I haven't looked, but I know Space Odyssey is in here. So we're going to see some plus, Alien and
Yeah.
other things that like in space that like are going to go way past this. But this is the origin. So I think not only is this an important film for history, it's an important film for us to do this. It was important that we started with this because where we go from here, we can then look back on and be like, hey, remember that movie where they wore funny suits on the moon and they slept on with blankets? Like, yeah, now look, now there's like vicious eating monsters trying to eat them on the moon or whatever. So no, this was good. I think I'm excited to see what comes next.
Well, speaking of what comes next, Matt and I have already ran the random number generator. And the way that I've done it for those folks who are following us and want to see how we're doing, I think we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit to some of the older things, but use a random number generator to kind of keep it fresh. So we're not, again, going year by year by year by year, kind of to break it up a little bit as far as film goes, which maybe that's a good way to do it, maybe not, but that's the way we're going to do it. I can't remember exactly what the page number was. However, the movie that we ended up on is actually one called Blue, the Blue Val
Blue Velvet.
Blue Velvet. Yeah, Blue
I didn't know if you needed me to say it or.
Velvet. I'm glad you did. I was thinking Blue Valentine for some reason, just like went right into that. But it's the director and
page
the
page seven
actor,
page
Twin Peaks.
721 for those who might be following.
721. But the director and lead actor from Twin Peaks and also the original Dune movie, um, they've been together a lot longer than I had thought. So come with us on our 1001 movie adventures. We continue down the path of movie history and figure out if that movie is one of the movies you should see before you die. Taking it back to you, Matt.
That's it. Join us next week. Same Matt time, same Matt channel. YouTube.com/Matt Knows Movies. Dan, this has been fun. I will see you next week with Blue Velvet.
Sounds good. See you guys.
See ya.